and welcome to How to Deal When the Shit Gets Real podcast. I'm Rietta.
And I'm Connie. And we are two interesting cousins, I guess. See, I changed it a little bit. Today we are talking about intimacy and listening, kind of go hand in hand, this topic of ours today.
Ooh, she chose the word interesting. All right, I like it.
Well, it is. It's an interesting combination. You don't necessarily think intimacy and listening. They're totally a combo. But
well, I meant you calling us interesting, but that works.
Oh, well, I mean, that too. I couldn't think of anything else. Interesting, I felt, was the correct word.
One of these days you're going to say a really random word, and I'm going to be like, what?
Next time on How to Deal.
We've both kind of had friends that have been messaging us about intimacy and issues, and I don't want to say issues in a relationship, but just, friends that want to talk about their relationships. So we thought it would be a good topic to talk about the importance of being intimate with your partner in different ways. And don't worry, we're not going to get too graphic for you.
If I wanted to get graphic, I would just read a romance novel. And, just so you know that is a real podcast. There's a thing called Read Me Romance, and I just find that really cringeworthy. Sorry, guys.
That's hilarious. I'm going to have to check out this podcast.
I'll read romance, but I just can't imagine. Or maybe I imagine myself reading a romance out loud, and I'm like, no.
It definitely would have to be the right person, because let's see, what would be a good example? What's his name that does the voice of Iago from Aladdin? You would not want him to read a romance novel.
Or like a high-pitched girl. I wouldn't want that. Yes, it definitely would have to be the right voice. If you've ever heard of Binging with Babish, he has a good voice. He's very deep, smoky toned voice. That would be good for, because he actually did fireside readings of children's books and stuff.
Ew. So yeah. Sexy children's books. All right.
Yeah, basically.
All right. Well, Connie had written down on our little topic sheet, because we have a topic sheet that we share with each other, 3 types of intimacy. So I'm going to let her start with that.
So basically there are 3 types. It's experimental, emotional, and intellectual intimacy. And basically, I don't even know if you really need the 3 types, but it's basically being comfortable enough in each of these 3 areas that no matter how you think another person would your partner would feel, you would still share these different experimental doing activities. So that would be doing activities that you might be afraid of, but you're willing to do it with your partner to become closer. Same with emotional and intellectual. You're not afraid with the other person to be closer in different ways, basically. They just have each different topics. Then emotional is obviously sharing your feelings, even if it makes you a little uncomfortable. And intellectual is, and I think this one's kind of really important nowadays, because there's so much political angst out there in the world. So it's sharing your ideas and opinions, and you're not afraid of backlash from your partner. And I could definitely see in a world right now, there's a lot of different opinions out there, and you definitely wouldn't want to share your opinion to your partner, and your partner be ridiculing you. That would be ripping a relationship apart. It definitely would not be intimacy.
Which is why we added listening on in there, because listening kind of plays a key into each one of those different categories, because it's important. And like we talked about before, you want to be listening to actually listen, and not listening just to hear. You're actually actively listening, hearing what your partner is saying to you, trying to understand where they're coming from, and then even empathizing with them, which kind of goes along with all 3 of those different categories.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. You don't necessarily really need these 3 types. It's really just how you express yourself, in whatever way you're expressing yourself to your partner accepts it without question, really, and that builds the intimacy in your relationship.
Right. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing. Whenever I get text messages from friends or whoever is having issues, a lot of times the issue seems to be that they are not communicating with their partner how they feel. And your partner isn't a mind reader. They have no way to know how you feel unless you are telling them what you need. And then a lot of it goes back to intimacy, because I don't know why we always feel such, I don't know, I don't want to say shame, but it is kind of almost shame of sharing our intimate relationships when we shouldn't. That's a natural part of who we are. Sex is a natural part of who we are. And you're not going to get what you need unless you express exactly what you need. You know, hey, I want this. Hey, I need you to do this. Play with my hair. Whatever you like. Tell your partner.
You know what this is? This is a deep-seated issue with the, what is it called?
I don't know. You lost me at P. She's Googling. Hold on.
Yeah.
I wish I could help, but I don't know what P is. It's a letter. It comes out of your body.
No. Well, you know, you have modernity. It's not modernity. It's the patriarchal society. It's a deep-seated problem with the patriarchy, because back in ye good old days, 1700s, 1500s, 1800s, basically centuries long, they told women not to feel. So
that's true. And I mean, yeah, the Catholic Church and all that used to tell you that, you know, you don't have sex, you don't, you know, good women don't do that, you don't do that till you're married. And then
pleasure.
Yeah, and even when you get married, it's still not really talked about. You know, you're just supposed to be married and please your husband and make babies. And
times I would probably say up until like the 60s, 70s.
Well, yes, the 60s was the free love. Everybody was loving. That's what we should go back to. Okay, maybe not totally back to, but partially back to.
Yeah, so I'd say like the 60s is when people really started saying, hey, you know what? Women are allowed to feel. Men were always, let's face it, I'm sure we have some male listeners, but I hate to break it to you guys that you were always allowed to feel whatever you wanted to feel sexually and otherwise.
I even felt this sometimes even in college, which wasn't even that long ago, that if you decided to have a one-night stand, which was totally up to you, the girl was the whore, but the guy was, woohoo, like you got laid on the first day, and it's like, that's not even fair.
You know, it's still a problem, because I remember friends thinking that type of thing, confiding in me that same feeling. And there's even been more recent movies about that kind of stuff.
That was one reason that I loved Samantha from Sex and the City. She did not care or apologize for the way she was. She had sex. She had sex with a lot of men. She didn't care what people thought. It was her life. She was going to live it how she wanted to. She was going to get as much pleasure and love out of life as she wanted to, and didn't freaking care. And I love that. I love that carefree, I can feel what I want and do what I want.
Okay, now, I have not seen Sex and the City. But wasn't she also, I mean, I guess it's not a bad thing, but I was going to say, wasn't she also prescribed or shown to people as a sex symbol?
It's probably part of the
like
why they
slutty or no? Because I don't know.
I'm sure a lot of people would consider her slutty because she had sex with multiple men whenever she wanted, but I think she can do whatever she wants.
Still like the attitude. It's not about how other people portrayed her or think what she is supposed to mean. You like that attitude.
Yeah, no, yeah. I just like that she didn't let anybody else's opinion affect her. She did what she wanted and didn't apologize to anybody for it.
Mhm. I'm sure there's somebody out there going against everything. It doesn't matter. So, you know, it doesn't really matter. Mm-hmm. This time, this day and age, everybody wants to argue about everything. I was actually watching a stand-up comedy show, and it's really, we're all going to be just arguing over like the simple sentences. I'm like, yep. And I guess that's where listening comes in, honestly.
It is where listening comes in, and it still goes back to intimacy. You are intimate with people in your life, not just your spouse, just in a different manner. If you're angsty with your friends all the time, that ain't free love. Come on now. Like, you can have different opinions, but don't be like, you're a bitch because you don't agree with me. Just be like, all right, you like that and I don't, and it's cool. Let's go to a movie.
Yep. You know what I just thought of? What you made me realize is what I should have started off with two loving cousins. Because it's the intimacy. It's what I should. It was a missed opportunity next time.
You ruined our intimacy thing. How dare you?
Yeah, could have been better.
It could. No, it's good.
We're always good. Let's face it.
Especially for somebody like me. Like, my husband deploys, obviously, and I don't just miss the sex, which of course I do, and I'm sorry that I keep saying sex to people out there that are sensitive. I miss the everyday intimacies even more than that. I miss getting a kiss before he goes to work. I miss cuddling up with him at night when I go to bed. I miss him giving me a towel when I get out of the shower, going for a walk and holding hands. I miss that stuff more than anything, and I feel like a lot of people from my generation and Connie's generation are forgetting about those little things, but they mean so much.
I definitely don't forget about those things, because I definitely wouldn't be able to stand not having Tom's humor around me and all the little things that he does, all his little quirky eccentricities, I guess.
Yeah, the things that make you happy. Obviously, not everybody falls into this category, but I feel like a lot of people are there, and because they aren't also telling their partner, like, hey, can we hold hands? Or, hey, like, let's go cuddle in bed. Like, they're not saying anything, so then their partner doesn't know. Because, let's face it, ladies, men aren't always paying attention. They're in their own little man world. And
actually, that is why I would suggest, if people are having trouble with intimacy, I would suggest reading. And you know what? This has come up in a lot of memes, and I laugh because I've actually read the book, and in the 5 love languages, because a person could be showing you how they love, and just in a different way, and you're just not recognizing it. Because, for instance, one of the quote unquote love languages is doing stuff around the house. You might see that just as a chore, but it's how they're expressing their love to you, is they're doing some sort of chore for you. Tom's just cutting the grass, but he knows it's something I don't want to do, so it really is an expression of intimacy and love.
Absolutely. My dad does the same thing. Like, for my mom, for instance, she doesn't like to, well, she does. She likes to clean, but vacuuming and mopping hurts her back. So my dad vacuums so she doesn't have to. And it's the same for Kyle. He will landscape the outside.
Exactly. So if you are having trouble with these types of intimacies, possibly read that book. Maybe there are ways your partner is showing you signs of love that you're just not reading. You're not seeing it. Especially because everybody's quote unquote love language is different. Can be different. Not necessarily, but they can be different.
And there's actually another book that my girlfriend sent to me just recently, and I actually haven't read it yet, but it's supposed to be a really good book. It's a bestseller. It's called The Dance of Intimacy. So it talks about, it's a woman's guide to courageous acts of change and key relationships. So it's going to give you ideas on how to express what you need and strengthen those relationships that are important to you, and not even just, like I said, with your spouse, but with anybody that's important in your life. Your mother, your father, your cousin, whatever.
You're falling off the ball, you know? You should have had that already prepped and ready to go. What the heck, Rieta?
I know.
People just have to listen to our podcast, then read the books, you know? Figure it out.
And if you have other suggestions of books or things that have worked in your relationship to keep the intimacy alive and going, please feel free to share it on our Instagram.
Sorry.
That is actually an important part that we should bring up. Sorry for anybody that gets embarrassed out there. If you are not in a relationship, don't be afraid to take care of yourself.
Hey, we've said that a lot before in different aspects of life. Look out for number 1, yo.
Whatever you need to keep yourself happy and...
I need $1 million. Will it appear? Can I get that?
We're talking about intimacy, woman. Stay on target.
I'm sorry. $1 million should make me feel real intimate, though. I'm just kidding.
Make sure to tell Tom that.
He knows. Just kidding.
You guys missed it. She got closer to the mic and goes, he knows.
You know I'm a goon. It's fine.
Stay intimate, friends. Don't relationship become stale and boring. I can't imagine.
Yeah, actually in my notes, which I think is the greatest, it says, grow your intimacy with your partner so shit don't get stale.
Lord knows, after 20 years or even after 10 years or whatever, that can start happening. But again, that's where you have to be open with your partner. And if things are changing, you have to be like, hey, why don't we have sex as much? Why don't we go out on a date as much? Which is another important thing. Don't stop dating your spouse.
Oh, definitely. That grows your intimacy.
It does. And I grew up watching my parents go out every Friday. For as long as I could remember, every Friday they had date night.
Oh, lovely.
That's how, well, and my mom would get all dressed up because she loved to get dressed up. She put on her nice jewelry. She wore her heels. They went out. They had a good time. I think that's a key thing. And you don't even necessarily have to go out to dinner, but you should set aside at least one day. I would say one day out of the month, but ideally it should be more, that you guys do something just the two of you, whatever it may be that you like to do.
Yeah, and I have friends with like a lot of kids and stuff, and that's basically my friend's biggest complaint that I've heard. Because we have 3 kids, we can't go out. Make it work. Do something. Bring the kids over to whomever's house. Pay for a babysitter. That's what they're for.
Yeah.
Even if you have 3 kids, so what?
I think that is a good point, though, because people do come up with a lot of excuses on why they can't do things. But if you really wanted to, you would make it work. And let's just say even you don't have a lot of money and you couldn't afford a babysitter. I guarantee you have one friend out there that you could swap with. This Friday you watch all the kids and next Friday they watch all the kids. Like, there is a way that you can make it work.
Oh, for sure. Because I even offered to a couple of our friends that we would watch their kids, and no one has ever taken me up on it. It's not like we have kids. We have an open availability. If you would have told me the time and place, I would have been there. I would have watched your kids. You would have gone out and have some fun.
And my mom has done that too with tons of the people in the family. I'll watch the baby. Nobody has offered.
To.
Oh, yeah, she would love to.
Nobody
has taken her up on it.
I'll take her up on it. Don't you worry.
Good.
Whenever I have one.
I would too if I was home, but that's my job as the daughter.
Yeah, well, yes. I know that's why my mom thought she can't wait for me to have one, because it's just like, it'll finally be my daughter, because it's different.
Yeah, but my mom would love that. And that's the main thing. You can find a way to make it work so that you have time. I get it. Yes, I only have one kid, but I do have one. And I get it that you get lost in taking care of your kids and in the mom role, and it's hard. But you matter, and your relationship matters, and your marriage isn't going to make it if you never have time for just the two of you.
Yeah, you need to build that intimacy, communication, and listening. And, this sounds like we've talked about it before, and, we've touched on it, but it never really hurts to talk about this stuff again, especially when we have a lot of people contacting us about it. So why the hell not? And also think, why were marriages always sticking together back in the day, and now not so much?
Yeah, now it's like people have...
Is it because of the lack of communication and intimacy and listening? Probably.
Yep, I think so, because we didn't have all these distractions either, right? Our grandparents didn't have Facebook and Instagram and a mobile phone in their pocket that did everything, so they paid more attention to each other, and it was just easier. And I feel like now it's more work, and people don't want to put the work in, but you have to.
Well, and it's also, even just from the get-go, it's even harder for people to find their significant and special other half. Finding their other half is a challenge all on its own.
Yeah, it is.
Some people, so.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it is. I can't imagine what dating is like out there now, and I
it
feel
scares
for people
me.
that are dating. Yeah, no, thank you. We feel for you guys.
Yeah.
I just hate getting text messages from my friends that are married that say, I haven't had sex in 3 months. And I'm like, what? Why not? And their response is usually something like, well, I don't know. Or we haven't talked about it. Or I don't want to talk about it. It's not that important. It fucking is important.
Because that's your physical connection, the sex, but it's more than that, because clearly, if you haven't even been expressing how you feel to another person, your emotions, that kind of thing. It seems more like you're ignoring a relationship than anything else.
Right. You're sweeping things under the rug, as they used to say.
So, you know what's even funnier about sex? This is hilarious. I don't know if Tom would be thrilled about me sharing this, but he's scheduled. So I finally figured out how to share. So Tom had a VPN and it wouldn't let me share my calendar to his, link them together. So I had to go on his phone and I linked it. And he, for fun, put in on a Saturday sex. And he scheduled it. I'm like, you are ridiculous. And then he was at work when the quote unquote sex schedule happened. And he is like, oh, looks like we have to have sex tonight. I'm like, okay. Yes, way to go.
Kyle's done that before too. When he's coming home from deployment, he puts it on there. He's like, he'll put something really long, like, finally after 6 months and 345 days, I get to have sex with my wife.
That's great.
I'm like, you are really bored, aren't you?
So Kyle and Tom are on the same page.
We are on the same page.
With scheduling sex. I didn't know that this would be a thing when I linked our calendar.
But that's another good point of a way to be connected with your spouse. It's funny. It's fun. You guys can laugh about it. You can look forward to it. I mean, why the hell not? You have a shared calendar? Put it on there. Call it something fun. Whatever you nickname sex in your house, call it something fun, and then your kids don't even know what it is if they happen to look at your calendar.
Even funnier about this is that, so the day that he put it on, like, the quote-unquote schedule, we were then watching a movie on Netflix, and the guy brings up looking at his calendar to schedule sex, and she's like, that's not spontaneous! Like, she's getting upset. She's like, you're not spontaneous anymore, is basically what she was saying, and then he's over there just trying to schedule some sex.
That's awesome.
I thought it was great. I was
That's
like,
awesome.
That's good.
And I've talked about this before too, where I'm not a huge fan of Dr. Phil, but there's certain things that I like that he says. And one of the things he says about sex in a relationship is when it's good and it's a part of the relationship, it's only 10% of the relationship. But when it's missing or it's bad or it's gone, it's 90%, which I think really speaks volumes to how much effect it has. And it's not saying that you just need to go out and have sex and it'll be better. It's just showing that when it's not there, how it has a ripple effect and it affects everything else.
Yeah, because it affects your emotions and your hormones and stuff. Yeah. All the little things buzzing around in your body.
Well, and then it gets your brain thinking, like somebody like me who overanalyzes and jumps to worst conclusions. I'm like, well, we haven't had sex. Wait, am I fat? Am I not attractive anymore? What do I need to do? Am I not tan? What's wrong?
Oh, God, that would make me miserable. I'm just like, this is me. If you don't like it, there's the door. Just kidding. No, that's not at all how I am. I think I would cry. No one will ever love me.
I just want to solve it. I just want to solve the problem. Like, why isn't this happening?
I don't think I'll ever have that problem because I think I get bugged on a day-to-day basis. And that's what happens when you don't have kids.
There we go. And that's how it should be. You should get bugged. It should be fun.
He just likes to be goofy. It's fine.
No, that's goofy. And that's good. You guys should be. That's the point. Have fun with your significant other. Have fun. Be intimate. Hold hands. Tickle each other. Whatever the hell you like. Schedule goofy things in your appointment book.
Oh my God. It's hilarious that you said tickle. No, because, again, I was watching a stand-up comedy yesterday, and the guy was like, imagine what would happen if because he was talking about gay rights or whatever. He's like, imagine what would happen if a gay guy tickled you. Does that mean you are now his and that we go together? Like, what's going on? And that's what gets you in the mood, tickling or whatever. It was really funny. I'm doing a very bad job. That is not the direct what he said, but it's the summary of the joke. And
something
it was
along
quite
those
funny.
lines. That's funny.
I'm not a stand-up comedian.
Added the tickle in there just because My husband doesn't really like being tickled, and I'm not really ticklish, so when I tickle him, he gets really mad, and then it kind of turns into like play fighting, and I don't
Oh.
know, it's just funny. It's
You
our
know
funny
what,
way.
Brianna? We're opposites. I'm the one who always gets tickled, and Tom is never tickled, and it always gets me upset. And he's like, "You're so cute when you're upset when I tickle you." I was like, "It's not funny." Laugh.
He obviously doesn't do all that because he's not a girl, but he's like, "Stop it, you're hurting me. Stop it. Why are you doing this?" And I'm like, "Because I want to hear you laugh. Just laugh and I'll stop doing it."
Maybe if you laugh more, I wouldn't have to tickle you.
Yeah, exactly.
So basically, you've become as annoying as our aunts because I remember them both trying to tickle the shit out of me all of the time when we were little.
This is
So
why
you're
I
that
am.
kind of person, huh?
No,
You picked
no,
it up
no.
with the ants.
No, no, no. Please don't compare me to them. Dear Lord, help me.
Too late, comparison made.
No, it's funny. I think I am not ticklish because I was the only girl for 7 years because you and Rachel didn't come along fast enough that all the boys did was tickle me. So I'm
Like,
just
I
not
am
ticklish anymore.
immune.
Yeah, now I'm immune because they were so ridiculous about it.
Could you imagine any of us not being ridiculous? Come on.
No, I guess that's true.
But yeah, actually, so those three types of intimacy, the first one's experimental, and it's bonding during activities. And that is your dates. That's,
Or what we were just talking about, tickling each other until you get pissed off.
yeah, it's fine. It's experimental activities.
Experimental activities actually sounds kind of dirty. Like, let's do experimental activities.
Yeah, right? No, I was purposely phrasing it in such a way because, like, imagine if tickling was, and it's like either you're going to get pissed off or you're going to get aroused. Let's see which one.
Is there anybody out there that gets aroused by tickling? That's an interesting concept.
There are all the fetishes.
That's true.
There was a guy that I went on maybe a date with. That's why it didn't work out. He had a foot fetish. He's like, "Oh, show me those heels." I was like, "Oh God, didn't know this is gonna go this way."
Put your foot in my lap, darling, and let me pet it.
Basically, I was like, "I'm gonna walk away now."
All right, we'll move away from the sex talk a little bit and maybe go more into sharing ideas and opinions with your spouse and how you shouldn't be afraid to share your ideas and opinions. Kyle and I don't always agree on everything, which is perfectly fine, but we'll talk about things and he will actively listen, not just hearing, actively listen to, what I have to say. He'll do the same thing back and we'll kind of come to a middle ground at the end just so we both understand how we feel about the conversation, and then everybody goes away feeling good. Like nobody ends up feeling bad, nobody ends up feeling defeated, and that's the way you should be able to communicate that even if you don't see eye to eye, like we talked about a few weeks ago, that you can still walk away from a conversation understanding why somebody feels a different way and still feel okay about it.
So are there ever conversations between you and Kyle or whomever where you just kind of end up agreeing to disagree, basically?
Oh, yeah.
There are also just some topics I won't get into with Tom because some things that he sees on the news, I'm like, I don't know how true that is, so I'm not arguing with you about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's a true or false statement. Like, if I don't know that it's actually a valid statement. Like, there was one where he was saying, like, Hillary Clinton got, like, arrested. And then, like, I looked up Hillary Clinton in the news and it said absolutely nothing about any of that. I was like, where the hell did you get this piece of information? But I also am like, I don't really care. Mm-hmm. And I'm not arguing about it. Like, I will share ideas and opinions and whatever. Mm-hmm. But there's some things that I'm like, I really don't know enough about it.
Yeah, and there's times too where I'll just ask Kyle to educate me, like if there's something major going on, and because I know he pays attention more because he is in the military and because he wants to know like major things that are going around, I'll just ask him. I'm like, hey, like I saw this, but I don't really understand. Can you tell me? Can you give me more of like an insider view? And he will tell me.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't be afraid to ask your spouse to help you, or there's nothing wrong with saying like I don't know or I don't understand. Can you help me understand this?
Me and Tom are a little bit different politics wise, and he likes to make fun of it a lot. And sometimes I'm just like, I don't know enough to, because he's like, well, why won't you have like a political debate with me? Because I don't have the facts and background information that you do. So it would make no sense for me to argue about like, this is my belief. I don't really know. I can't go quote statistics to you.
That's good though, because there's a lot of people in our country right now that will vote for somebody just based on one random fact that they've seen. So it's good that you don't want to have a conversation without knowing. We don't really talk politics too much either because Kyle is in the military and, you know, he can't be too boisterous about his opinion because Trump is his boss, technically. I mean, he is his boss. So, you know, he can't be, no matter what his opinion is, good or bad or otherwise, like he doesn't really say his opinion very much because it just doesn't
because
look
it could
good.
I was going to say it could get back in that to him, and that's not good.
Yeah, it just doesn't look good. And, you know, he's very cautious with his job and he's very professional with his job. So he never wants to do anything that would reflect on him or his job. He believes in doing it very well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Oh,
could
yeah.
you imagine? That would be crazy. Yeah, he really shouldn't say anything because that is his livelihood. It could get him in trouble.
And of course he still votes, you know, he does of course still that, and he just doesn't talk about it in a very aggressive manner like a lot of people do.
Well, see, I don't think that it's something that should be that aggressive. It's
Yeah.
politics and it's always changing. Leaders are always changing. People in Congress are always changing. So, you know, it's
There's a lot of aggressive opinions out there right now, though, especially with Trump and Hillary and all that. There's a lot of
in
wow.
general, there's a lot of political feelings out there. There's a lot of opinions. There's a lot of ideas. But the point of this is that listening, communicating, it helps you build your intimacy, and you shouldn't be afraid to voice your opinions. I just am very cautious with my opinions because I don't like to say one thing or another that I don't know for sure. If I don't have the facts, I will listen to both sides of the story and I will think about it. But I'm not going to necessarily voice my opinion all the time, especially if I don't know. It's just who I am. And that's why I don't post anything political, really. I used to on Facebook, but I'm not on Facebook anymore. And I definitely don't on Instagram.
Yeah, I'm not a big person like that either. I mean, occasionally I will if something really passionate happens, like when national monuments are vandalized or veterans' graves are vandalized. Like, that's something that I will get involved in. But I usually don't get too involved in stuff either because it's so deep and people are so
and
passionate.
no matter what, you're going to get attacked. Even if you're just saying, hey, be respectful. Be respectful of each other. I bet you if I posted that on Instagram, I'd get 1 million people who'd be like, rah, 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 rah.
That read way too far into it when you were literally just trying to say be respectful.
But that's the point. And that's what we're saying. Like, if you were in an intimate relationship, you don't ever want to feel bad about having specific ideas or opinions. How social media and the internet can make people feel.
I think what a lot of people get caught up in, and I kind of got caught up in it myself until I realized it was really dumb. You know, some people are more active on social media than others. Like, kind of just talked about, like, she doesn't really use Facebook, but she uses Instagram, and I use social media pretty frequently just because it helps me with what I'm trying to do with my business. And then, like, my husband doesn't really use it much either. And for a while, I would be like, why aren't you liking my posts? Why don't you comment on there? Why don't you say things back? And I was like, why am I getting upset about this? This is really stupid. Like, we live in the same freaking house. He doesn't need to like my post.
He was there, is what Tom tells me.
He was there. So just as somebody who did temporarily think that for 5 seconds, and I was like, wait a minute, why am I thinking this?
Mm-hmm.
Don't get on your significant other or whoever that they didn't like your post. That doesn't mean they don't love you just because they didn't like your Instagram post. It just means they don't love social media.
Mm-hmm. Or what Tom would say is, why? I was there with you.
Yes.
Like, why do I need to like it? I was there. I'm in the photo. And then actually, like, sometimes I'll be like, see, I liked it, honey.
Well, not everybody expresses love that way. Like, I'm more of an open love person. Like, I will make a post, like, about Kyle and say, like, I love you, you're the best, whatever, like, for Father's Day or whatever it may be. And he's just not that type of person to get on Facebook and be like, here's my wife, she's amazing. Plus, he's a guy. Guys don't really do that anyway.
Yep.
But all I really wanted to make a point there was, don't get mad at your spouse about not blasting your relationship all over Facebook and Instagram. And most of the time, not all the time, of course, those people that are blasting it out there don't even necessarily have the best relationship. They're just trying to make their Instagram look good. There's always exceptions, because I do put stuff up about my relationship, and I think it's pretty good. But some people are putting it out there just to show you that they have a pretty picture, but it might necessarily not be a pretty picture. They are just showing you their highlight reel. You have not read the full book.
Exactly. Actually, it was really funny because speaking about like posting on photos, because Tom really doesn't post a ton of photos. He loves, his favorite thing is to catch me making a weird face or like looking at something very intently and posting it on Instagram. He thinks it's the greatest thing ever. Like catching me, weird laugh. Like he wants the funniest photo he can of me to post. I've accepted it. It's fine. Pisses me off a little bit. Sometimes I make him delete it. Most of the time it's all right. But anyway, I think he was like looking back into his photos and he was like, wait, I didn't post anything for our first year anniversary. I'm like, no, you never post shit. And just this, like he started realizing it and then posting more. And I think it's because he kind of separated his business, which is all of like taking like the Guns and Coffee photos, and his personal.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you don't want to have too many post or whatever, and maybe he just really wasn't on top of it before. He really wasn't on it as much. So now because he's on it a little bit more for the business, he's like, wait, I didn't post anything? Oh, I'll post something this year. I was actually shocked that he posted something on our anniversary before I even had a chance to. I was like, really?
We're just having all sorts of anniversary surprises. I had anniversary surprise texts too, so it's just fun. Not from my husband, by the by, but Connie knows what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
Random relatives wished me happy anniversary, which was very shocking. But my husband didn't post about our anniversary, and I don't care, because guess what? He gave me a card, and he did other things, so...
I was going to say, he told you in real life.
Right. He doesn't need to post it on Facebook. Like, I like to do it just because I feel like it's an extra way to show love, but just because he doesn't think it's an extra way to show love doesn't mean I'm mad that he doesn't.
Again, it's one of those... it goes back to that book that I mentioned where you believe that is you showing some extra love. And like you said, some people could get pissed about it not being reciprocated, but you don't, because in real life he's doing X, Y, and Z, sending you a card, whatever, for your anniversary.
And like you talked about, because that book is called The 5 Love Languages, he has a different love language than I do.
Mm-hmm. And you have more of that social media presence, and you like being on social media, so it's a natural thing for you. It just isn't for him.
Right, and that's perfectly fine.
Social media is not for everybody.
No, it's not. And I don't even like it most of the time, but if I want to sell books and stuff, it really is the best way to get in touch with a lot of people in a small amount of time. So, it is what it is.
What it is. We're not related at all.
No, not at all. Well, all right, Miss Summary Lady.
Oh, I'm the Summary Lady?
Yeah, I'll think of a better name, because Summary Lady sounds like...
Yeah, it sounds like I'm old and decrepit. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll think of a better one.
I'm not. So, basically, intimacy and listening, they go hand in hand. Listen to your partner, be intimate with your partner, have fun, tickle each other. It's all good. The end.
Since you said hand in hand, hold hands.
Hey-o. See what we did there?
We always tie it together.
Oh, always. We are just tying it together, people.
All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. I'm Rietta.
I'm Connie.
And thank you for listening.